Well, hi, I'm Suzanne Lynn with Triangle Spotlight, and welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us. Today, our guest is author Jeff Dawson, and Jeff has written a book called Love's True Second Chance. It focuses on family that have been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I think that breast cancer has probably affected us all in one way or another, if not personally, certainly by our extended family. Jeff, I know that my mother and my sister both passed from breast cancer, so this is a very sensitive, raw topic for me. So I'm glad that you're joining us today. Thank you.
It is my pleasure, and I'm sorry to hear of your loss.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about your book, Love's True Second Chance. What is the foundation of that? What's the meaning behind that?
The foundation is, the title is based off of my high school sweetheart, Debbie Beck. We dated in high school for a year and a half. I went to college. The relationship collapsed. I was not a happy camper. 30 years later, I put a business card in her parents' mailbox, not knowing if they lived there.
Oh, wow.
On the assumption that this is the third time I did it, that this is it. This is the last time I'm going to try and contact her. 2 weeks later, she called me. We discussed about meeting. She did everything in her power to ward me off. She was divorced. She had children. She was on the tail end of radiation and chemotherapy for breast cancer. And my response was, I really don't care. I've waited 30 years, so let's do this. Well, this was our second chance, and this time we got it right.
God's perfect timing. He knew when it was going to be the right thing.
Yes, it was.
Well, I will say this, Jeff, you are persistent. My goodness. You must have been crazy about this girl.
There was something about her. I never could put my finger on it, but I did realize after she passed that it didn't matter. I was married. We had children. I had other relationships. That marriage failed. But when Debbie and I dated, I gave her something that no one else was going to get a hold of, and I didn't realize it.
What was that?
There was a piece of my heart that no one could touch. And when we got back together, I asked her, why do you think it happened now? And she goes, unfinished business. And she was correct. We got to finish what we started so many years ago.
What was it like seeing her for the first time after all those years? Describe that moment to me. Where did you meet? Tell me about it.
Like I said, I was nervous as hell. It's like, okay, I've waited 30 years for this. Now I don't know what to do. So she gave me the address. She lived in McAlester, Oklahoma, which was 2.5 hours from Dallas. I drove around the neighborhood, kind of like you would in high school. It's like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? Yeah. You know, come on. You're in your 40s. It's act like a man and get with the program. And I had plenty of reservations of what it would be like. But when I called her up and said, okay, give me the address again. When I pulled into her driveway and she stepped outside and she smiled, that was it. I was done. Okay, that's the girl I remember. And that's the girl I'm still in love with. And
wow.
Her smile it just melted me. It was horrible.
Yeah, you knew you were gone. It was over.
I knew I was home.
And Jeff, you got into this relationship knowing that she was battling breast cancer. To what degree was she fighting this?
She'd had a mastectomy. She went through the chemo. She still had, I think, 3 more radiation treatments. She was bald. I didn't care. None of that mattered to me. Seeing her is what mattered. Was there still something there?
And that was a big, absolute, definite yes, right?
That was a very big yes. I mean, it took, you know, it was a new relationship on familiar ground.
And it was mutual?
Yes, it was. She had her reservations, but she was, because you haven't changed at all. And I said, no, I've gotten older and fatter. But other than that, I guess the attitude's still there. She goes, yeah, you could say that again. Yes, I can.
This is
But
kind of,
it was.
it's the ultimate love story.
Yes, it is.
Truly loves true second chance coming through. Let's talk about the walk with her through her cancer battle.
I'd gone through cancer with my partner and my father. So I was kind of prepared for what could be in store. But with Debbie, I was there for one radiation treatment. I took her, and when it was over, I didn't realize just how much it took out of her. She slept the next 18 hours. And I asked her, how have you done this by yourself since May? I mean, we got back together in January of 09. And she goes, well, I just had to do it. And I go, well, that's over. You have an appointment, I will be there. Work can wait. And if it's important, I've got a phone, I can take care of business. But my work is going to take a back seat to helping you get through this. And I love doing it. And it gave her girls a sense of, I guess they could relax a little knowing that there was somebody there to help their mom, because she was pretty much on her own. When it came back in April and they did the MRI, I was there for that. I told her, I'll take you to the appointment. Then I want you to call me and tell me when they're going to give the results. She did. I showed up, and it was a death sentence. I listened to everything the doctor said, all the drugs she would have to take to combat it, and then the drugs to combat those drugs. She still hadn't regained her strength. I mean, she had built up some, she was getting stronger, but it was not a promising diagnosis. So when we got back to the house, her oldest daughter asked me, well, what'd the doctor say? And I just told Jessica, you want the truth or do you want me to lie? And she goes, well, I'm tired of people lying to me. Tell me the truth. And I said, barring a miracle, your mom's going to die. That's all I can tell you. It's everywhere. It's in her back. It's in her spine. It's around her heart. Her liver's partially covered.
Now, how long have you been with her at this point?
4 months.
Okay. So you're coming in the tail end, really, of her battle.
Yes.
How long how much time did you have together total?
From the time we got together till she passed, 7 months.
So she lasted another 3 months.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting because my personal experience seeing the caretakers of my mom and my sister, it's hard on the caretakers. It's not just emotional. There's a lot of physical. So those 7 months, you know, while I hear that you had a lot of joy because you were together, that had to be a difficult, trying time for you.
Well, like I said, I went through this with my partner. He died of liver cancer in 1990. My dad, I forgot which cancer he had because I became his caregiver for 7 months. Yeah, mentally and physically, it is exhausting. But since I'd gone through this twice with Debbie, I knew what to expect to a degree.
Okay.
Now, and granted, I'm working in Dallas and she's in McAllister, so I am balancing work and her care, but it wasn't hard because I knew what the priority was. Debbie was my priority and her girls.
Wow.
So we didn't dwell on the fact that it had come back. We lived and enjoyed each other as much as was physically possible, because it really didn't knock her down until a week before she passed. Now, her daughter called up and said, Mom's spitting up blood. I said, okay, I can't get up there today, but I'll be up there tomorrow. And yeah, she looked good in the hospital, and we joked a little, and her dad was there. The hardest part was trying to get her parents to understand your daughter is going to die if she doesn't get help. But she'd been under the care of another oncologist, McAllister, and they were convinced that he knew what he was doing. And I said, well, I don't have any medical authority here, so okay. But I'm telling you guys, I was there with the doctor. I saw his eyes, and they reminded me of the oncologist with my dad when I looked in their eyes and they told me what was going on. I said, okay, I know what's coming.
Because you've been
So
there.
it wasn't until the last week that it really was taking her down. And it was interesting. Like my dad, I didn't leave. I stayed up there because I knew, okay, the clock is ticking. And it finally got into her bloodstream. She became septic. She didn't recognize anybody anymore. And she went to the hospital for the last time and passed, I believe that was a day and a half later.
What did you learn through this?
How much I loved her, and that I am so glad we got the chance to finish what we started. It would have been devastating to go to a reunion and then hear through the grapevine that she had died, and then knowing that she had lived in McAllister all this time, of which I've got to pass through to go to Tulsa when I would go visit my parents. That would have been really, in my opinion, that would have been bad, because I'd have missed one of the greatest loves of my life.
Even though you only had 7 months with her, it was worth it.
I would do it again, knowing the outcome. That's how much I loved her, and we got along. We didn't dwell on what could happen. We did, in the time we had, and I forgot the number, but I actually put it on a calendar one day, of the 7 months, how much actual time did we spend together? And I think it came down to like 2.5 months, because I would go up there every weekend. Then I'd go back to work. Then I'd come up. It started out, it'd be every other weekend. And then that became every weekend, which was not long enough. But we didn't worry about the time we didn't have together.
It
we
sounds
enjoyed
to
the
me
time we did have.
You squeezed every moment of joy in those last couple months with her that you possibly could, because your priorities were right. It sounds to me from what you're saying, you had your priorities right. Family first, work second.
And that was a lesson that she taught me, because up until that point, the company I was working for, I was working 7 days a week, 16 to 18 hours a day.
Wow.
I lived to work, and that's just kind of the way I was wired. When Debbie and I got back together, I learned the reverse. You work to live. And that's what I did. So that's 7 days a week. And it really shocked some of the guys I worked with when I said, I won't be here. Why? I said, because there's something more important than dealing with you idiots every day. I was a project manager on a highway construction job for the state of Texas. And that's what I did. Because she and her girls were more important than me being in an office telling a bunch of guys what to do every day.
Truly, money doesn't buy happiness.
No, it doesn't.
You know, the other thing that really stands out to me is how you were honest with Debbie's daughter. I think that our parents try to do right by us by maybe not being 100% truthful. In their mind, they're trying to protect us. But then, you know, in my case, that's what my mom and dad were doing up to the last moment. And then when she passed, I was shocked. How could this be happening? It wasn't adding up. So while it sounds harsh that you say, look, I don't know how else to say this, your mom's going to die. I mean, it really was kind of a gift for her to start to prepare for that.
It was, because then I said, do you want me to tell your sister? And she goes, no, I'll tell Amanda about it. And I said, okay. But I mean, and I was able, dealing with my dad going through this, when the doctors tried to diffuse and deflect, I said, no, that's not what we're here for, girls.
Mm-hmm.
I need the facts so I know what to prepare for and what to watch for. That's all I'm asking. And I felt I owed that to her daughters, that I'm not going to paint a rosy picture here. This
Right.
is what we've got to deal with. This is where you're at. So if there are days where your mom doesn't have a lot of strength, you know why.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be here as much as is absolutely possible and still be able to perform my job. And I did have a laptop, so I could go up there and take care of most of that, my work between the laptop and the phone. But they became a high priority.
Mm-hmm.
They were what was important.
You know, Jeff, what I love is that you took control of life. You didn't let it just run you over. Well, I guess she's the one that got away. Man, I mean, this is a story of persistence in a way I've never heard before. And your payoff was 7 short months, but it was worth every second, right? Every moment that you weren't with her those 30 years.
That 7 months we shared a lifetime of love in those 7 months. And when I wrote the book, that was really the most, I guess, revealing part to me, is everything that we did. And I mean, I could go back and look at past relationships, my marriage, and it's like, why didn't we live as, what's the word I'm looking for? As fulfilling as what Debbie and I were able to do in 7 months. And I don't know if it was my fault. I don't know if it was my partner's fault or if it was a combination, but we just didn't even before the diagnosis, we didn't take anything for granted. And maybe that's because I worked in Dallas and she lived in McAllister, and we had to enjoy the time together. I went up there one weekend. I was exhausted. I remember that. And I slept, oh Lord, I think like 16 or 18 hours. I didn't wake up until Saturday afternoon. I was like, what time is it?
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie came in and goes, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I go, what the hell, woman? I didn't come up here to sleep. I came up here to spend time with y'all. We were too afraid to wake you up. And I said, oh my Lord, good Lord, people.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hungry. Let's go eat. I said,
you
I'm
wanted
not
time
here to sleep, okay?
You wanted time. Jeff, I love your
Yes.
story. Let's talk about the book. How can people get a hold of this? It's the ultimate love story, and just penetrates your heart to remind us, don't let time slip away. It's not too late until you've passed. You still can do something about this.
That is correct. The book is on Amazon. It's both an ebook and in printed version.
Okay.
I also, my email is jdawson41@netzero.net. You can order them through me and I will sign them. And that's where they're available. I have them in a few independent stores in the Dallas area, but I haven't checked on their stock lately, so I don't know what they've got. But the best place is getting them on Amazon.
Okay. Love's True Second Chance by Jeff Dawson.
Yes.
Jeff, thank you so much for your time. You're just, what a joy. The highlight of my day, hearing about your tremendous love story. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Well, I thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for watching the show. We hope that you enjoyed it. Having digital marketing for your product or organization is so crucial these days. People are ditching traditional advertising like print and broadcast commercials and turning to relationship marketing platforms like YouTube and podcasts that people can consume on demand on their time. Let's talk about how we can build your digital library with segments just like this.